some of the problems with other programs out there, Joe Wicks was brilliant in lockdown, got everybody healthy, but you're doing one type of exercise to a massively diverse group of individuals, probably some that are young, some that are older, some that are fit, some that are obese, and so on. And it's something we've all talked about a lot, seeing how you can't have one size fits all. Where are we a little bit different with Mars? Obviously, we've got yourself very much around the posture and the moving, very much talking about zone one with Christian. Jane's very much about looking after those muscles and so on. Because there isn't a one size fits all, where's the best place for somebody to start? I'll probably ask yourself that with a movement, because obviously M for Mars, we start with movement. Where does somebody that goes, right, I've had enough of just sitting on the sofa, I want to do something, where do they start?
I think initially body weight training is the best place to start. And I've been a coach for sort of 10 plus years now and worked in many gyms, and you see the kind of the foundation is to get someone in the gym and start them on machines, which are brilliant, and they're fixed path movements and stuff like that. But I think here at Health Results we need to be focusing on getting people to understand and be able to use their body weight first effectively before they move into sort of lifting heavy.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier on, but Christian was saying that post 60, the number one injury and injury leading to death post 60 is people falling over. And I guess with your broomstick exercise, that sort of in the 5 postures that both you talk about, that's something we've got to build into everybody's training from the off, isn't it?
Definitely. You think over the age of 65, if you fall, I think 50% of people who do that, I think they struggle to ever walk again properly. So it just shows you how important it is to carry a level of strength and coordination. And that's why the broomstick, for example, that type of work, just teaching people to stand up and down from a seated position and learning how to contract their muscles, concentrically standing up, eccentrically lowering down, just being able to contract them and hold those postures, make sure your knees in the right position, etc. Being able to hover and hold that isometric contraction just as an initial early phase of learning, and it acts as a proper conditioning session for many people when they come in. If we have someone come into us and they've got type 2 diabetes and they're maybe 60 years old, just the act of actually standing off a chair without using their hands, it's a difficult thing for them to do. So working towards that, and in the process actually teaching them how to do that properly, it can be a major thing. But the great thing about that is it sets the preconditions for everything else they'll then do exercise-wise in their life, and it's a great learning tool.
So we've got stability, we've got stance. And James, you gave me some frightening statistics recently about, as a nation, how inactive we've become. I can't remember the exact stats now.
Yeah, I mean, we have become hugely inactive. So it may have been what I told you was that 80% of the country don't walk a mile continuously once a year. So it's just, in terms of, you originally said what people need to start off, I think actually it's, as Christian said, knowing how to move correctly, so then you can then build on it if you want in the future. And I think the other thing is also being able to achieve something. And actually, if you've gone from doing nothing to want to start making changes, suddenly doing I'm going to do this big workout on TV, I'm going to commit to it totally, and then you get 5 minutes and you go, I'm never going to do that.
Yeah. And
then you fail before you start. Whereas I think part of it is actually having a program that people, I can do that, and then I'll do that, and then I'll do that, and then before you know it, you look back, and then if you write it down, you think a month ago, there's no way I'd be able to do this. I'll go and do that, and you realise that just by having I think a lot of people, especially if they're overweight, they're not having moved very much, they hear a lot of criticism from themselves and from other people. They see people similar to them being criticised, and actually achieving something is a big step forward to then give you the confidence to spiral upwards rather than being pushed back down.
And that's why with the various levels, isn't it? The different levels of our courses, our 12-week programs, because not one size fits all. And I was telling James the other day in my local park in Warwick, brilliant organisation, something military, I can't remember what they're called now, but they're all dressed in their army gear. And they've got 40 or 50 people doing press-ups, running around the park. And for the vast majority of those people, it looks about right. They look fit, they're obviously getting some benefit out of it. But every time I see this on the weekend mornings, there's 2 or 3 that I just look at going, you shouldn't be doing that. They're obese. They think that's what they should be doing because somebody said, well, you better go running. You're overweight because you're lazy. Calories in, calories out. All that rubbish that we were always hearing. But the reality is, you should really. There's an old phrase, don't try and run before you can walk. And I know you're a big believer that actually you shouldn't do any jogging or running till your waist to height ratio gets about 0.54, 0.55.
Exactly. We tend to follow like a health development performance type of scenario. What you're describing there is no pain, no gain, and we have issues with that in general. With from myself having a history of coaching, obviously training as a professional football player for so long, and it's very much a no pain, no gain type of environment. And also coaching athletes for the last 20 years and seeing the same thing. All we see over time is a reduction in conditioning levels, a reduction in health. The type of people who I now look after are people who've been through that system or in that system of no pain, no gain, or are copying programs based on that and are struggling to find an answer as to why they feel so poorly, why they've got injuries, why they've got niggles, why they've got certain conditions, etc. But it's because of this no pain, no gain scenario. I think it's becoming almost like a short-term hack people felt and to try and find a way to enhance their health or lose weight or whatever it is. But how about you add something whereby you change your thought process and you say, right, okay, so could I do that same thing again tomorrow? And could I do it the following day? And could I do it the following day? Now, if you're doing something that you couldn't do every day, then you can probably regard it as hard.
Yeah.
And having something whereby you can just potentially move each day in a certain way, at a certain intensity, with a given exercise, doesn't matter what the exercise is, if you have this thought process, can I do that again?
Yeah.
So maybe that's low intensity health, maybe that's low intensity training, maybe it's not high intensity training, maybe it's something that's almost like see exercise as a form of hormesis.
Yeah.
So you're getting enough stress, but the stress recovery adaptation cycle is such that you don't need 3 more days before you have to do it again. You might just need 24 hours or 12 hours. Maybe you could do it twice in a day. You see, think back to almost like our ancestral roots. It's probably moving a lot, moving most days. And we know how poor sedentary behaviour is for us. So having something that you can continuously do and move all the time, but still stress the system enough to force an adaptation, then I think that's what we are all searching for.
And why have we ended up in this scenario where so many personal trainers and so many people think, well, if it's not hurting, it's not doing me any good, when even the founder of Nike many, many years ago was very much into slow jogging and started his empire with the slow jogging. And you look at all that ancestral history of the fact that we were just moving constantly, and we occasionally sprint, but that's not, and that might be a little bit of pain, but we're talking seconds. Whereas most personal trainers, you see them beasting people in the gym on the cross trainer, on the treadmill, faster. Yet all the evidence in all the paper and all the research says that is not good for longevity.
Yeah, I think ultimately it ends up, it's like this health development performance type scenario. We always look at having these healthy underpinnings, and then we look to develop the physiology that enhances those healthy measures, and then you've got this performance element that you can actually then add into it. I think it's very easy to jump into the performance side of it and give people what they'll view as specificity at that high end. We see this in athletics as a classic case with athletes, is that they'll look at the speed at which people run a race, and they'll say, well, they run that 800 metres at 60 seconds per 400, let's say. And so let's do reps on the track at 60 seconds per 400, high intensity reps specific to the speed that they're going to run at. But what they forget, and also the idea would be that the more of that you can then do and tolerate, the better. Now, I understand that because we obviously come from a background of understanding athletics. The problem is, what you find was that the coaches who felt they would have these big groups, and they would then have a number of people all doing it. Now, at any one time, you might have one or two tolerating this and a whole load of other people not tolerating that level of stress, see?
Mm-hmm.
And a big misunderstanding would be that if you run a 60-second 400 metre in training, that is totally different to the almost like fight or flight hormonal milieu you'll have in a race.
Yeah.
If you watch somebody running that same speed in a race, they look like they're jogging.
Yeah.
It's a totally different thing. It's not, so it's that, seeing it as specific is actually not specific. And I think it's a misunderstanding of what specificity is think, well, the race is high intensity, so everyone's got to be high intensity. But what's the physiology that underpins that? Where does the energy for that type of metabolism that's required for that distance come from? And it comes from a range of places. And the further away you go from that actual intensity, because if you see it as a pyramid, you've got the intensity at the very top. But then it comes, obviously, you've got non-specific intensity further away from that, but you can really overload those non-specificities. Yeah. But I think that's slightly more, requires a bit more patience, probably a bit more intelligence to do that, maybe a bit more thought goes into it. Yeah. And it's very easy just to take the pace of something and just say, I'm going to run them as hard as I can, as often as I can, as high as that. And of course,
I suppose to answer the question I put out there, I guess, is the reason no pain, no gain seems to be everywhere at the moment is a lot of people go to that personal trainer, they're spending their money, and they want to, in their mind, be pushed as hard as possible, as opposed to maybe getting the posture right.
But is that the dopamine hit then that you get from it? So you get the high. Yeah. It's like the sugar. It's like people like sugar, and it gives them a bit of a high. You get a dopamine hit, and you love it. It's addictive, and then you come off of it, and then you go again. But really, that's not necessarily. You don't necessarily want to get that all the time.
Going back to Chris was saying about a training group, and that's what you're going to go for that time. But the reality is that a lot of sort of elite, semi-elite training groups, that a lot of coaches will have the athletes they see as having true potential, and 80% of the group is there as fodder to push them along. So you've got the 3 or 4 that actually, to do the 60-second reps, will be cruising it, and you've got the 80% will be hanging, but the guys at the top will be at 95%, and they'll get the benefit from it. The others are kind of basically like the Red Army, where you get pushed forward, and there'll be more coming along. So the top guys will benefit from that because they're not going flat out. Whereas if you train flat out all the time, you're going to spiral down. But back to your initial point of why people want the hit and everything to be done instantly. I do think that society's changed from 30 years ago. If you look at, go back to pop music, the way the Beatles became successful, they just toured and toured and toured, and they got their craft right. They didn't have the instant fame of the X Factor. Mm-hmm. And that's why they have stayed around with that. And the same with exercise, in that the government recommends 2.5 hours a week. And the biggest reason people don't do that is that they don't have the time. But yet, on average, we watch 27.5 hours telly. So we do have the time. And you can't expect to make you want to make the advances in a short space of time. And the reality is, as Chris was saying, you need to build that base up, and that takes time and isn't intense and flat out. You're not going to get, we try and cram so much into our lives that it's a totally different workout over half an hour as it is over 90 minutes. And 90 minutes, maybe you'll enjoy it in a different way. Yeah. But you've got to commit the time to it.
Yeah. And maybe equal to that, people saying they haven't got time, but must be a fear factor as well, because if you think it's about no pain, no gain, and if you think, last time I tried to even just jog from the kitchen to the bathroom, my knees ache because I did it quickly, what we're saying is slow down, aren't we? I think what we're saying is that if you're just starting out, slow down, because even professional athletes, the bulk of the training isn't out there trying to pace yourself, and you've got to be able to finish it and go, actually, I could just do that again. Because
what's your memory, or what's most people's memory think of sport at school, PE at school?
Throwing up on the finishing line on a cross country.
Cross country, exactly. Yeah. Which is cross country in the winter, and let's face it, my primary school was exactly the same. Your PE kit in the summer is the same as your PE kit in the winter. A pair of shorts and t-shirt, and you're going out to make blood. You think exercise sucks. I don't want to do it, and that's if people have been put off it, and then to throw back into it. The way you've got to get back into it is by hurting yourself in a park with loads of army boys shouting at you. People are going to last. The guys you're talking about, fair play to come back week after week. They've got the motivation to do that. You can easily get a more productive way to do it.
I think James is spot on there with the analogy of the athletes as well. Just as an example of it suiting maybe 2 or 3 of the top athletes, and because what was also quite interesting was because let's say you had 2 athletes within your group who were maybe running for England or something at that time. The sessions tended to be fixed around them, but also what you'd find for them in particular, they were so passionate about their running or their athletics that they would tend to live a lifestyle that allowed them to do that, but also they would be the ones that were on their own going out for regular low intensity aerobic runs to underpin their higher intensity runs. So if you looked at the entire volume, what they were doing all week, it's totally different to what the other kids were doing, or the other young ones were doing, or other athletes were doing. And they were coming up just for those sessions and being hammered down these. Of course, they were ending up with problems with a lot of women with menstrual problems and inflammatory conditions and knee issues and things like this. But they were looking at those top athletes and wondering how I'm doing the same as them. But they weren't doing the same.
And the thing is
it was a different thing they were doing.
You look at the athletes at the top, the ability to step up from their training level to their racing level, and that's because they're training right. They're not training flat out. When you've got the guys that are training flat out to hit that level, they can't step up. So it's not that they're underperforming; it's just that they are overexerting all through training. So then you've got nowhere to go.
I think just echoing what Christian and James have said about sort of misinformation. I think a lot of coaches out there sort of know that people want the quick fix, and so their first initial sessions are all about getting that sort of dopamine hit, so that they come back. But really,
and sorry to I fell for that many times over the years because if I went for a training session with a personal trainer and I didn't ache the next morning,
it wasn't effective.
I'd go and look for another one.
But I guess you think what's the reason most people start to think I've got to get fitter and healthier is weight, is their body weight, and then actually the reality is that's easier to fix with diet change of not eating as much as it is with exercise. And if you want people to come back, you need to, which is why I think training has to get instant results, whereas actually the first thing should be, right, watch what you eat, and then you can't outrun a fork. So the first thing is, right, put that there, and then actually if the weight comes down, then it gives you the confidence to then step this up and this up. I mean, weight, exercise is brilliant for maintaining weight. It's not great for losing weight.
That's right. You've got to see it as a full system, haven't you? You can't differentiate the exercise from the nutritional. They're working hand in hand. At the end of the day, you're trying to make physiological adaptations, and similar physiological adaptations, whether it's through your nutrition or through your training. And there's certain parts of your physiology that underpin those, and we're all searching to just try and enhance those in people.
I
so
think
it
you
then
said it
becomes
brilliant.
how is it you do that?
I think you said it brilliant to me a couple of months ago, Christian. You said every time you're doing some exercise, and let's define exercise as a physical activity beyond what you'd normally do just sitting around, because it's as loose as that. You said, as long as you know why you're doing that particular exercise and you're doing it for that reason, then that's great. In other words, if you are doing some resistant training, you're doing it because you want to support your muscles, support your joints, etc., etc. If you are trying to build your aerobic system, don't go out and run fast, because that's not, to build your mitochondria, by genesis of your mitochondria, you want time in the slower zone, so know why you're doing it. If you want to go for a sprint, know why you're going for a sprint. And I think this is the key thing that we're trying to get across with Mars. It's all about longevity. That's why we call it LEFT, longevity, exercise and fitness training. How do I stay healthy for as long as possible? And it is not by beasting yourself. And if you're starting from a point of zero where you haven't done any exercise for years, I think the good news we're trying to get across is you train light to train right. And maybe at the very, very beginning, it might just be a couple of minute walk each day. It might be, as James teaches a press up against the wall.
Well, think of this. Think of this, Steve. So if you when you have someone initially coming in to see us, and they're in poor metabolic condition, let's say they could even be on the verge of type 2 diabetes, whatever. If you were to put a heart rate monitor on them and say, right, out you go for a walk, and they go out for, let's say, try and walk a mile, but when you get them back and you look at the heart rate data, and they've actually been sitting at 90% of their max heart rate, you know, for just by walking, and we do see that. Okay, so then the next day they come in, just go out for that mile again, just go out, and over time, as they just get moving a bit more, they'll come in one day and their heart rate hasn't even touched 70% of the max heart rate. It's been below that. So we're trying to get people in between 70 and 80% of the max heart rate. So it might be that you walk a little bit further and look at the average, a little bit further. At the same time, the nutrition's bubbling away. But at no time have you tried to walk any faster. You've just done the same walk, you've just got them out. So it's not so much of a training system. You're naturally, the stress will lower for the given activity. But if you want to increase the stress again, just incrementally build that again. So let's say the aim was always just to keep everyone eventually between 70 and 80%. That person might get so lean and fit over time that they might have to jog at 9-minute miles to hit the 75%.
Yeah.
Well, they're just improving all the physiology that underpins their metabolic health. The same thing as they started at the start, where they just went from completely sedentary behaviour to just walking a mile and being very tired at 90%.
Yeah.
Suddenly, these people are going to the local park run and completing park runs. But at no time have they had to stay out with that boundary, see? Because as they get more conditioned and they make those physiological changes, everything above that intensity will be naturally improving anyway. Mm-hmm. And it also makes them more likely to do that intensity, so when they do, they'll get something from it, and then they come back down and go back into that range again, see? It's common sense.
I think something you just mentioned is that none of this is at the gym.
Yeah.
Like, this is all outside, it's all right at our fingertips, you know?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people feel that they have to go to the gym, and that in itself creates a barrier because it's then getting to the gym. Yeah. Whereas really it's like right at our fingertips, it's right here.
Yeah.
Sure. And what could you say about it being a whole lifestyle approach? That I was working with a physiologist who worked with the League Managers Association. They were testing the managers' fitness and stress, and essentially there was they did a max VO2 test with the managers. That's perceived. You know, you go on the treadmill, they increase the speed, stop, take your lactic acid until you can't go anymore. And they did one on Sam Allardyce. So he was, and then they put a heart rate monitor on him during a match, and he's when he's manager of Bolton, and he got some players sent off, and his max heart rate standing on the sideline was as high as it was on the treadmill. And so it's just the stress that he has in that part of his life. It's kind of, you need to, you've got to look at what other parts of your life, the stress involved in that, to then take and be able to relax.
So cool saying that, James. It's interesting. We see lots of this because we've got so many years of monitoring heart rate data. It is amazing. So we have. I can think of one athlete that I look after right now, who will run. It's a female who runs her easy runs at 150 beats per minute. She tends to run to heart rate, and she'll run at 7 minutes and 30 seconds per mile.
Wow.
Okay, for that, she's a good runner. Okay, so it's a nice zone 1 pace, a good speed. When she stands on the start line of a race, I'll shout to her, "What's your heart rate now?" She'll go, "Bit nerves, 150 beats per minute." She's not even started yet. So think of that. Think of this. Think of this. That's a completely different scenario there that you're in. You're about to go. You like that? What are you now? And I've seen this so many times. It's amazing. They're actually at the zone 1 heart rate without even raced yet, not even started yet. So that's absolutely incredible data for us to have. But think, if you've not set any preconditions in there, you're dealing with a whole new thing there when you're going into that fight or flight response that you're having there. So it's a completely different thing. So you've got to have really good preconditions for that. It's really handy to set that. So but by having that basis of it all the time, you can deal with the stresses much better. And I think you're trying to build up that physiologic reserve to be able to deal with all those stresses. So I think that's what exercise kind of does. It just builds up that reserve. for us, and it allows us to deal with stresses.
And I wasn't going to touch on it in this program, but let's do it just quickly, because James said quite rightly, why do most people start exercising? For most people, it's because they want to lose weight. And then if they're overweight and they start running and they go above that 75, 80%, not only are they probably going to do injuries, but actually they're not actually in fat burning mode at all. They're now looking for sugar and glycogen, and therefore they're fueling it with the sugar in the body that is a temporary fuel source. So the second they stop, the brain says, well, my glycogen stores are low, my blood sugar is low, eat food that's high in sugar, and therefore they put it back in. So all they've done, they've not lost any body fat whatsoever. They've just depleted their temporary store, which then gets filled back up. But in your zone, right down there, the 70 to 80, I still do quite a lot, 60 to 70 as well. Yeah, in that zone, you are burning body fat. And when James and I did that 500k bike ride recently, we had, because we were eating nothing, we were fasted for 5 whole days, we had to just burn body fat, and therefore we had to keep the intensity lower.
I also think, just touching on what you said, I think a lot of people exercise for the visuals and the aesthetics, and I think that's, but ultimately who doesn't want to look better? We all do. But I think if we can sort of shift it a little bit and think of the longevity and think about sort of building that good base, getting that movement in, that aerobics, that stance, that resistance training, and getting fit for life rather than seeing it as a quick fix. I think if we can do that, then we're on to something good.
And you just end up looking good anyway.
Yeah, as a byproduct.
You end up as a byproduct of that. You see.
So the other thing is motivation as well. I mean, my mum's a physio, and her exercise choice has been swimming, and so she's a fit lady. And I was concerned to say, look, you need to do some element of resistance training. So just walk, just start walking. And she, even though she knows she should, she wasn't interested at all. And in the end, I bought her a Fitbit. I said, agree or disagree with 10,000 steps. So that's just, try and hit a target. And the age and technology argument, okay, she's not going to be that interested in that. A month later, she phoned me up at 9 a.m. going, I've done 10,000 steps already. And you think a 7-year-old suddenly getting motivated by hitting, whether you agree with the 10,000 steps or 5 fruit and veg a day, it was her target, and she'd done it and then had changed. No, me saying it made no difference. It actually having something that buzzed when she hit 10,000, she got a good bit of feedback. She was like, yeah.
And numbers work. We see this with exercise programs as well. I think we should, because I see so many people going to the gym and they walk in and they haven't got a plan. They haven't got a program to follow. And they're walking in, they're kind of, okay, they go on the cross trainer for 10 minutes and then they're kind of looking around at a machine that's free, waiting for it to be free. And that number thing, that whole 10,000 steps, that translates into a program. So having like a specific program to follow, that you're doing X amount of sets and X amounts of repetitions and you're resting for this amount of time, and these are the list of the exercises that you're doing, following that is a sure way to really get results. But if you go in sort of aimlessly, and you don't have a plan, you're more likely to stop, I think. Yeah.
Listen to what you said as well about the bike ride that you did. It's amazing that the human body's actually able to do that, isn't it? Yeah. But that's because if you view the body as a self-regulating system, and you basically feed it the nutrients it requires, that'll be the essential amino acids and essential fatty acids that it requires. It doesn't require any exogenous carbohydrate whatsoever, because it has its own systems such as nutritional ketosis and also gluconeogenesis, where it makes its own carbohydrates or own glycogen from proteins, etc. It's an amazing self-regulating system. The further you get away from that, the less that system self-regulates. So if you closer you can make it to that, and when systems in general start to deregulate, it becomes almost like an every organ for themselves. You see this when people start getting ill. It's almost every system for itself, every organ for themselves. What you really look to do is take it back into this self-organised, self-regulating system, feed it and just leave it, give it nutrients and just leave it, and it produces and metabolises its own energy. And seeing you do that, you and James do that bike ride like that, that's amazing. But also from my perspective, my co-founder at Zone 1 Health, Emma Prideaux, is the #1 endurance runner over 45. And she broke the British record for 20 miles, but she ran that fasted. See, so she was fully fat adapted and ran that fasted, and broke the British record for 20 miles in that. Now that's incredible. Imagine taking people to a situation where the human body can regulate so well, and it can produce its own energy so well that out with any nutritional intake, you can actually feed itself to run at that intensity, let's say at 90% or more, it's actually more, of your max heart rate for 2 hours, full out intensity, maybe 94% or something, you're running it there for that amount of time, and it's able to find that energy, but it actually able to produce it itself. How is that possible? So just taking people towards an understand of somewhere along there, that's how systems work, like the human body self-regulates like that. It's taking people back to there. That's what we're trying to do. Because at the extreme end, you can see what everybody can do, and so just at a pure metabolic health situation, it's a no-brainer to take people to that. Just to get it back to that how it self-regulates. So you don't need a tablet for type 2 for high blood pressure, and you don't need a tablet you don't need metformin for your type 2 diabetes, and you don't need things for heart disease, and all. Suddenly you need tablets for tablets. If the system self-regulates and comes back, you're always your aim to get back to there. It's amazing how it can do it itself.
Yeah, I think this is, put simply, is that evolution is amazing. The human body is amazing, and we just muck about with it.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
And that's
correct.
Stop mucking about with it.
Yeah. James worked with Primal on supplements for a few years. You've had your own business called Primal, and so on. And all we're really saying is, your closed loop system, is that you've got to look for ancestral precedents to what is health and fitness. We want to be healthy for as long as possible. How do we achieve that? Well, we've got to do what the human body's always done. If the body couldn't switch on fat for energy, and the lion was chasing us, or we were chasing dinner, if it couldn't adapt to that, if it hadn't eaten for the last 3 days, then we wouldn't be around as a human race. I mean, the human body will flick those 3 different fuel sources for ATP within the mitochondria in lots of different ways. I think where we've gone wrong over probably 50, 60 years, 50, 60, 70 years even, is we've become a corporatized world where everybody's trying to make money out of you with either you should eat this, you should do that, these trainers are better than those trainers, this gym equipment over there. Everybody's trying to make money out of you. And really, the 3 things that no corporate can make money out of you are the 3 things that are better for health. Get a good night's sleep. Or when you're sleeping, you're not spending, so nobody's going to tell you should get a good night's sleep. Fast periodically. Well, when you're fasting, you're not spending money, you're not eating, and you're certainly not snacking. And then the other one is come back to the real prime movements of don't need any equipment really. And James and I are big fans of resistance bands and things like that.
Back to basics.
And sitting on a strange cushion to try and get my posture right. But apart from those, get back to the basics of probably the best exercise you can do when you can do them are press-ups and pull-ups and dips and stretching and broomsticks. And
what you've got there is that everything that the human body is evolved to make itself, what we've done is produce an exogenous form of it, feed it that exogenous form, so you down-regulate that self-regulating system, and all the systems start to act for themselves. Suddenly you've opened up a market for each individual organ for everybody to go in and start to fix.
You're looking for things to up-regulate again.
That's
the
right.
Sugar.
So then you get this nice little heart disease thing going on, and everybody's right. Okay, so we can take this tablet for this, and so suddenly there's a market for it.
You mentioned sort of the evolution aspect of it, and this is, I think, a really interesting way to look at it, is that the body prioritises survival, growth, and reproduction, and so if you take to the age of the girls have their first period, so in Tanzania, which still has hunter-gatherer tribes, their age of menarche is about 15. Whereas you got Western diet, you have girls that are 10 having their first period because they haven't got the survival is walking to the fridge. So their body doesn't need to prioritise growth, doesn't need to prioritise survival, doesn't need to prioritise growth. It goes straight to reproduction. Whereas you've got kids that are hunter-gatherers, they're walking loads of, but they still have to run 5 miles to school to Kenya. Their period comes later because their body is not as well nourished. In order to then think, right, now I can reproduce. Whereas You've got girls at 10 because they have no survival thoughts. They're just, okay, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And we're mucking with it.
And we're mucking with the hormones, with the food that they're eating as well. Just massive addictions of sugar and carbohydrates, and as you get more insulin pumping around the body,
Well, that's why those fasted bike ride and run we did is I went into both, just thinking it's not possible because I was a carbohydrate junkie, and in terms of performing, I couldn't. It didn't equate to me that you could go that far on no carbohydrate because I was programmed to think, well, you need carbohydrate to perform, but actually you don't need carbohydrate to survive. You don't need the 0.1% of people that will need to go flat out for sport or for life or for, if you're happy to leg it from an animal. Whereas the rest of us, it's actually, you don't need that. Our body is really good.
It's really incredible. And everyone that comes in that I look after now, if they end up doing a 5K or a half marathon, or they now all do it fasted. And if you gave them the option of eating, there's no way they would do it.
No.
There's no way they would do it because they know what it feels like to have taken their system to the point where it can actually self-feed almost. And they would go, no, I don't want anything.
It still sounds wrong to me, though. It still sounds wrong. What are you doing?
It's fine. I know it is mad. And this is the thing. So this is this sort of cool thought process that I think that we've got, where you're almost feeding the body nutrients to then go and find its own energy, as opposed to the fact is that what we've always done, what I always did to myself, was feed it, and this is what James is talking about there, he would feed it the energy to do the work, you see? And I think it's a slightly different thing. It's the difference between nutrients and energy. We're just giving it the right macronutrients, the amino acids and fats, and then allowing it to make its own.
Yeah.
That's what we're saying. But what we do is we feed it those things.
Well, tell me
the carbohydrates.
Tell me
we
the
feed
story
it the
when you were a
carbohydrates.
professional football player and they told you to up your calories. Tell me about that.
Well, that was So I remember being in my teens. So my first place I went to was Dundee United. It was come from Dundee, and so it was my home team. So it was amazing to actually to play for them. Now they were quite forward thinking. You're talking like when I started in 1990, and by the time I got to say like 1992, we had a nutritionist come in and they were taking our body compositions and things. It was amazing. Like back then, when I think back, and they were talking about what we ate. So we had to fill in questionnaires. We're going. I remember filling mine in. You've got this decision. Questionnaires are a bit of a nightmare, and I think in general in nutritional science it's a bit of a nightmare because you're unsure whether to tell the truth or not. Do I actually admit to that? Do I tell them that, or I just thought, you know what? I remember speaking to my mum and dad, and they just said, "Look, just put what you do, and then it's the best thing you do." So, right, okay. So I remember I was putting everything on there. I was putting on the Lucozade, the old Lucozades. I was putting on sugary ones, Mars bars. Because I used to have king size Mars bars all and things like that. I did pasta, rice, like everything. So everything I looked at was just all carbohydrate basically. And I remember I gave it to the nutritionist, and then they went away and they came back and they said, "Look, what you're doing is really good. It's about 3,000 calories worth of sugar or carbohydrate." He says, "This is what's fueling your energy. The fact that you're doing well and things like that. But what we'd recommend is that you could probably add in more, and we would recommend having 1 or 2 bags of licorice all sorts per day on top of that, and take your calories up to potentially up to somewhere around 5,000 per day, because you'll need that, a growing boy, the energy intake it takes to do this." I was like, really, God, it's like right, okay. It's like, so if you fast forward then, but before I was 20, I'd had so many inflammatory issues. When I look back at photos of myself, I could see my face is ballooned, I could see this, and I'd had 5 knee operations before I was 20. I'd had 5 lateral cartilage trims. I had no lateral cartilages from then. Now, if you just think of the intensity of training I'm doing, it's no pain, no gain. Yeah. It's pure sugar fueled. There's absolutely no, self-regulation going on whatsoever.
So that's 1990. If you fast forward to 2022, your son's a brilliant young football player. How does the nutrition approach to helping him become an excellent football player compared to what you were doing 30 years ago?
So I would say it is better. I think but it's still very much along the exogenous carbohydrate route, without a shadow
The
of a
advice
doubt.
from the professionals still.
Yes, very, very much.
And how does
so.
that make you feel?
I think there's a massive scope to change that, because I'm not saying you can't manipulate a professional athlete's nutrition accordingly. There's probably a way in which you could. I mean, we do that from time to time. It's not like we never have a carbohydrate or anything like that. But definitely you could have those young athletes being able to make the switch. And I know there is some professional football clubs in England, up at the very top of the leagues, who are on low carbohydrate nutritional strategies for big parts of their week and things like that. And I think that's the way to go. You're bringing this underpinning health and also that ability just to find more energy. I do look at some of the teams and think, wow, the amount of energy, the way that they can press and hold that these days. And I think a lot of that's down to some of those top teams that you can see have got high presses and playing 60 matches a week like that, have definitely adapted their nutrition a bit now, and they're working out that it's not about how much carbohydrate you take all week, and that's the energy source. You're trying to have different ways in which you can find that energy, and being able to be slightly fat adapted is probably absolute key to that. So my son does actually do a bit of that, and he trains quite often fasted, but he doesn't play without carbohydrate, for example, but he can actually flick between them quite well. With being younger, you get away with it a bit more as well. So
I interviewed Peter Bruckner for a podcast, and Peter Bruckner was Liverpool FC's doctor, medical doctor, and then he was the Australian cricket team's doctor. And he was carrying a bit of weight himself and read about low carb, so he went low carb, then went keto, and as a doctor he started to look great. And one of his young cricketers came to him and said, "Look, doctor, even though I'm an international cricketer, I'm carrying a bit more weight than I should. Tell me about your diet." So he taught him about his diet. And they were doing a tour of India, and this cricketer was on the fringe of the first team, wasn't quite in the first team, but always had a problem with his knees, and the doctor was having to inject his knees every now and again with that. And cut a long story short, they forgot to inject his knee. And now he's been, this cricketer has been now low carb, keto for about 3 or 4 months. And he went to Peter and he went, "Doc, we've forgot to do my knees. In fact, we've forgot it for a few sessions." And he went, "And how do you feel?" He said, "It's gone away." And it just transpired that he then never needed injection again, because he's not loading with carbs anymore. So the inflammation's gone away, and then he ends up being a regular first team player, one of the top batsmen in the world. So,
and Steve, there's actually a physiological reason behind that as well. This is sometimes one of the issues. So we get people in with knee conditions that come in, and they've spent a lot of time at physios, and it's a difficult one for the physio, because they'll be presented with, like, let's say a tendon injury, and it's okay, we've got these certain exercises that we can do, but what if when you have treatment on that injury, that what we're doing is what we do with a lot of medications, we're just treating a symptom. What if there's a metabolic health related root cause as to why someone has a joint condition or someone up in their joints? So for example, if you end up with fatty liver, let's say it was fatty liver through alcohol or fatty liver through too much sugar, then you can end up, that again, you've got this down-regulated system, so suddenly this organ's just trying to look after itself, and it's trying to find a way to, and the liver can produce in excess enzymes that normally have advantageous effects on the body, like, for example, in terms of immune function and healing, wound healing, things like that. And these are, an example of that is something called matrix metalloproteinase. It's just an enzyme that helps in wound healing, etc. But when the liver's not functioning properly, it's almost just as a byproduct of that, creates too many of those matrix metalloproteinases, and these have got nowhere to go, so they end up sitting in joints, and they're about the only enzyme you have in the body that can actually attack the actual joint connective tissue itself, or the extracellular matrix of a joint, so what it's actually made of. You can actually attack that. So what it does is it degrades the joint. You end up with pain, inflammation, all these problems. Now, if you don't fix that system, then you can have all the treatment you like, you're going to be sore. You're going to constantly have it. So a knee injury becomes a metabolic health problem, not an injury.
Yes.
If you see.
And if I take that to the extreme, you're talking about an athlete there. But if you also then take it to, if somebody's carrying a big gut, they've got an inflamed liver. I mean, just every time, pretty much. You can't be overweight and not have an inflamed liver. And therefore, if it's pumping out that enzyme, it's another reason why you shouldn't go doing impact sport or running or jogging until you get your weight down.
And Steve, and I'm actually not even talking about athletes. I'm talking about the people that be coming every day. So we have been approached by the NHS to do a potential pilot study on people who need knee and hip replacements, because what you find is if you treat, we've had surgeons coming in from within Essex to ask us to do this. If you take people who require knee and hip replacements and you get them off of the sugar and the carbohydrate and get them on a more like a species appropriate nutritional strategy, it completely changes how their joints function. It reduces inflammation. So different things. You stop producing these enzymes. The liver's an amazing organ. It heals really quickly. Yeah. So then that system regulates itself. It's fine. You stop producing these enzymes. Suddenly pain goes. Then because pain goes, inflammation goes down, pain goes, muscle functions better. You can start to get into the muscle, you can start them standing up. So suddenly you have half the patients you'll have will just within a few short weeks, you don't need a knee replacement anymore. See? Yeah. And this is a big problem within the NHS have got now. They've got 2 years waiting lists. 2 years waiting list for knee and hip replacements, or 3 years. The surgeon that came to see us was the number one in Mid and West Essex, and he has got about 2.5 year waiting list for people. But he says in that time that you're waiting for that operation, by the time you get there, you could have another 2 health conditions. By the time you get there in 3 years' time, it could, and you're sedentary and you can't move. And if you don't understand that it's actually not an injury or a knee issue, it's in itself, it's actually metabolic health type thing. So to educate and help people along that, it's an absolute game changer. To change that thought process. And but it's a difficult one because again it's about viewing the system as a whole, what that would mean, as opposed to just looking at one individual thing and maybe treating a symptom.
Yeah, it's back to that whole thing, isn't it, about sleep, get your sleep right, try to de-stress, get your nutrition right at the beginning of the show. James said, you can't outrun your fork, and it's not just about the number of calories you're consuming, it's about what you're eating. So if it's sugar that is then ultimately giving us the fatty liver, which is then ultimately releasing those enzymes that sit within the joints, you've got to start with the diet first. And then let's just start walking, low impact, stretching, moving, press ups against the wall.
Brilliant.
And start that way, not thinking you've got to beast yourself. And in fact, if you look back to virtually everything we've touched on in this hour, if you're looking to start out with exercise, the last thing you should be looking for is that saying of no pain, no gain. I mean, you've got to go slow. Start slow. I remember you saying to me, I phoned you up in the winter, and you went, you won't believe that. I went, what? You said, I'm going out doing a zone 1, and look at you, fit as anything. You said, and I'm just walking, and I'm at my heart rate. I said, how are you doing that? He said, well, I've just eaten, so I'm digesting food. I've got a massive big coat on, and I'm really, really hot. And I'm walking, and even as fit as you are in the zone that burns the energy, not even running.
No. And what's really interesting as well is watching the adaptations. That if you actually target that, and you say, right, I'm going to do that, what you do is you see it getting more and more difficult to hit the heart rates over time because you're getting fitter, be aerobically fitter. But what's also interesting is you watch your resting heart rates drop as well, precipitously over time as well. It's a great little marker for your general health as well. Just watching your resting heart rate over time, just dropping down over time. It's an amazing little way of doing it. And at no time are you really overly stressing yourself too much. It's just enough. It's like that, so almost like hormetic effect almost you're looking for. It's really interesting. That's right, they still do that.
And we've also mentioned at times having goals and measurements for all that. My goal on resting heart rate is to be 1.5 times faster than James, because I'll never get anywhere near his resting heart rate, because he's been building that aerobic base for such a long time.
I can imagine the physiology that James had when he was, probably obviously still now, but when he was actually rowing would have been outrageous. He'd had a max resting heart rate down here and a max heart rate up here.
But the coordination down there. So it's skills. One set of skills, the other's not there.
Well, guys, that's been fascinating. I think what we've tried to cover in this hour that is that let's get back to basics. Let's go back to eating the human diet, moving in the way we should move, checking our stance. You know, when we're doing jogging, do it nice and slow, build that base. Starting out, you know, the resistance, you haven't got to go to the gym, just, you know, some resistance bands or up against the wall or whatever. But also, don't run before you can walk. In fact, let's see if I can remember both of Hippocrates. First of all, he said, walking is a man's best medicine. And then I also remember, I can't remember the exact words, I'll put it on the screen, but it was something like, if I could give a man the right amount of exercise, not too little or too much, that is the way to greater health.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, people that want to start out, don't think you've got to go running, don't think you've got to go lifting big weights straight away. Start slowly, build the base, because you're looking for living as long as you can, for as fit as you can, but you've got to start somewhere and get doing something.
Yeah, that's right.
Thanks, gents. Brilliant.
Thank you.